قد اندرست آثار دين محمد فأشكو إليك وأنت تبني وتعمر.
In Surah An-Nur of the Holy Quran, Allah states that those believers will indeed prosper, who hear the call to Him or His messengers and they respond, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا, which means we hear and we obey. Allah has promised success to them and reiterates that He will be there to protect them. However, they need to have a strong conviction that whatever happens, they show the greatest levels of obedience to Him and His messengers. And these can be seen in the Sahaba of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, as even though a command may have been against their own judgment, they followed their master regardless. And every time that they did what initially seemed like a loss, it turned into a glorious victory.
أحن إلى من لا يحن محبة.
This is the land of my master, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What you see is the mountains Mecca, where Muslims have been banished from by the Quraysh, along with Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It was during this time, while in Medina, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam had a vision in which it seemed that Muslims were performing tawaf of the Kaaba as they would do during the pilgrimage. Hence, a large group of believers, perhaps 1,500 Muslims, led by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, headed to Mecca. However, the Quraysh prevented the Muslims from proceeding further. They proposed a treaty be signed by both parties at Hudaybiyah that not only prevented the Muslims to perform tawaf that year, but heavily disfavored the Muslims in every regard. It seemed that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was agreeing to all the terms set out by the oppressors. Hazrat Umar even asked him that if the Muslims were in the right and when they had lost so many people due to the harsh persecution, then why were there Muslims to bear further humiliation? The Holy Prophet ﷺ replied that he was the messenger of God and that God would not perish him. In that moment, all the believers who were agitated by the decision of the Holy Prophet ﷺ became quiet. Interestingly, their obedience was awarded. As the year passed and events unfolded, honoring this treaty was the best course of action for the Muslims, as they were saved from unknown dangers. And so, the same treaty that had seemed a source of humiliation, it became the source of strength and honor.
وعلمني ربي علوم كتابه وأعطيت مما كان يخفى ويستر ألا ليس غير الله شيء.
This small hill, Jabal al-Rumah, is what remains of that very small hill, where Muslims learned the consequences of even the slightest disobedience to their master, when it seemed so harmless to do so. It was during the battle that Muhammad ﷺ placed 50 archers here with strict instruction for them not to move unless he explicitly told them to. As the battle went on, and when it seemed that the Muslim had won, the archers decided to move away to get the spoils of the war, again at the Holy Prophet's command to it. Unfortunately, as they made their way away from their post, they had to retreat back as the enemy attacked once again, seeing the strategic hill was left empty. In fact, because they went against the commands of the Prophet, the enemies gained the upper hand, and so in this case, the supposedly apparent victory becomes the complete opposite. Such incidents mean that even after his demise, the Sahaba showed obedience to the commands of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is something that we now know is so crucial, having been through a pandemic that has shaken the world. In the time of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, there was a plague in Syria, and a decision needed to be made for the Muslim army to continue or to go back. And when the Sahaba were reminded that the Holy Prophet ﷺ had instructed not to visit an area where you even hear about a plague, they decided to not go further in order to control the spread.
وأكفرني قومي فجئتك لاهفا وكيف يكفر من يوالي محمدا.
Another inspiring incident is from before the time Allah had prohibited drinking alcohol. Hence, some of the Sahaba of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gathered to drink some. They had drank an entire pitcher and were about to open the second, when all of a sudden they heard a voice announcing that the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said that from that day Allah Almighty had banned drinking alcohol. One companion who was drunk said that they should find out if this was true. Just as someone left to do so, another companion who was also drunk stood up and broke every remaining pitcher using a stick. Some of the companions asked him why he acted so sudden and rash, and that he should have waited for clearer guidance. He replied that for him it was more important to obey the message they had received from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ first and ask questions later. The promised Messiah ﷺ has stated that we should adopt the ways of the Sahaba and use these virtuous and inspiring events to emulate the same level of obedience, which in turn will lead to the success of the whole Jama'at, inshaAllah. May Allah Ta'ala enable us to become true followers of faith and the commands of Allah and His Messenger. Ameen.